This is my army of Orcs. It's 1020 points using version 2.7 of the army list. They're being led by a Brute Ultra Boss. He has been upgraded with a Great Weapon and a Scrap Fist. He will be deployed with a squad of 5 Brute Orcs, and each Brute Orc is armed with 2 hand weapons. Regardless of how they're modelled, they've all got 2 hand weapons. That gives them 6 attacks apiece. With Furious on the charge, that gives them 7 attacks each, but no AP and no rending. We've also got a Shaman, or a Shaman, potato potato. He's been upgraded with Wizard 2, so casting some spells. He is relatively good at that, but he's not so good in combat. We've also got a unit of 3 Giant Boar Riders. No upgrades on them, just as they come. Hand weapons and tusks. So yeah, pretty good on the charge, with impact 4 each. So that's 12 automatic hits when they charge in. And then in the centre at the back we have got a Chanter, and he will be deployed with a unit of Black Orcs, 10 Black Orcs. One of them has been upgraded as a Sergeant, so he gets +1 to hit. There are 2 in there with Great Weapons over here on this side, and that's a free upgrade, so yeah, just the 2 as they are modelled. There is a Banner and a Drummer in there, but I'm not counting those because I didn't have the points to be able to do it. So the Drummer and the Banner are just there for flavour. They're all equipped with 2 hand weapons each, other than the 2 that are equipped with Great Weapons. And the Chanter will give that unit +1 to hit when fighting in melee. Again, he's not that great with weapons himself, or well, he hits on 3s, but he's only got a 5 up defense. So yeah, he's probably going to be at the back of the unit, urging them on with his chanting. So that is 1020 points of Orcs with a Brute Orc flavour to them. Onto the AI. This is 1015 points using version 2.7 of the Eternal Wardens army list. They are being led by a Celestial Lord, mounted on a Great Drake. That gives him Fast, Fear, Fire Breath, Impact 3 and an extra Tough. He's also been upgraded with a Tempest Hammer in place of his usual hand weapons. We've got a unit of 6 in the Liberation Squad. It's a bit annoying that they come in units of 6. It'd be better if they came in units of 5, simply because of ease of making the models up from the GW model line. But there are 6 in there. They've been upgraded with hammers. We've got a unit of 3 in a Retribution Squad. No upgrades there, just as they come with their shock hammers. We've got a unit of 3 in an Evocation Squad, and they are again just as they come with their swords and staves. I could have upgraded one as a wizard, but that would have made it a bit more complicated, so I'm keeping things simple. So no wizards in the AI force. And then finally a unit of 3 in a Prosecution Squad, and they've been upgraded with Sky Hammers. Now all of these are classed as melee units for the purposes of the AI rules, with the exception of the Prosecution Squad. Because of their ranged attack, they get 2 attacks each with an 18-inch range, whereas in melee they only get 1 attack each, so that would make them a hybrid unit. We're set up. It's not quite a straight line of objectives going down the middle of the board, so the AI placed this one on the edge. I placed that one next to the Orc Totem. I also placed the one in the middle, as I like to do, and the other one was placed by the AI over near this barrow grave. And then for deployment, on the AI side we've got the Evocation Squad over here on my left flank. They're all on their own. The Liberation Squad is in the centre, and they flooded my right flank with the Celestial Lord, the Retribution Squad and the Prosecution Squad on that hill. And counter deployment for me, we've got the Boar Riders, Giant Boar Riders over here on my right flank, with the Brute Boss and the Brute Orcs here. We've got the Shaman in the centre, and then over here we've got the Chanter with the Black Orcs, and I think there'll be more than a match for the Evocation Squad. Wishing forward to take these 2 objectives. For terrain, this swamp or marsh is going to be dangerous terrain. These patches here are going to be difficult terrain, and everything else is just line of sight blocking. So nothing special about the hills. Sometimes people ask me, where do I get my game mats from? This one is from P-Work Wargames, and the rest of the terrain is made by my good self. The Orcs finished setting up first, so they will get the first activation in the first turn. Kicking things off for the Orcs, the Shaman has strode forward, chanting and bellowing, and is going to cast Magic Fists on the unit of Giant Bull Riders. Now this will go up on a 5+, but he's Wizard 2, so he'll get +2 to this roll. And that's a 6. So when the Giant Bull Riders fight in melee next, they will get Rending. And to see who will activate first for the Eternal Wardens, on a 1 or a 2 it'll be the Evocation Squad, on a 3-4 it'll be the Liberation Squad, and on a 5-6 it will be the Retribution Squad. So that'll be the Liberation Squad in the centre. The Liberation Squad are a melee unit for the purposes of AI, so there are no enemy units within charge range. That means they will rush towards the nearest uncontrolled objective, moving around difficult terrain. So they've rushed forward 12 inches, heading towards that objective in the centre of the table. For the Orcs activation, my unit of Black Orcs with the Chanter have rushed forward towards that objective on my extreme left flank. They will be out of charge range for the Evocation Squad when they activate. And speaking of which, the next unit to activate for the AI will be the Evocation Squad. The Evocation Squad, being another melee unit, have rushed towards this objective near the Orc Totem. And the Orcs being uncharacteristically cautious, this brute boss is obviously no simple-minded brute. He has cautiously rushed forwards 11.5 inches to make sure he's going to be out of charge range of anything else that's going to move on the part of the Eternal Wardens. But he has positioned himself tactically for a precision charge on the next turn. Now we don't need to roll for the next activation for the AI, because it will be the Retribution Squad. Everything on my left flank and the centre for the AI have already activated, so that leaves the stuff on my right flank, and the Retribution Squad is closest to an objective. The Retribution Squad, being another melee unit, have rushed forwards onto that objective, making them a nice easy target for the Giant Bull Riders just behind the crest of the hill. The Bull Riders will activate next, and they should be able to make the charge distance into combat. And the Giant Bull Riders do indeed go crashing into the Retribution Squad, their fast ability coming into play there. Starting off with 4 impact hits apiece from the Giant Bull Riders, so this will be 12 automatic hits on the Retribution Squad, and these are going to need 3-up saves. And there's 3 fails. So that will be 1 dead Retributor already. Now those don't get rend because they're just impact hits. However, we now move on to the furious attacks that I'm going to put on the Giant Bull Riders' tusks. So rather than 3 attacks each with the tusks, they'll get 4 attacks each, so that's another 12 attacks at AP 1, and 6s will be rending, so AP 4. First of all, hitting on 3s. And that's 4 6s. Not too many other hits. So we'll do the 6s first, because these will be 6-up saves. And there's 2 saved, so one of them down to 1 wound left. And then these 3 will be at AP 1, so 4-up saves. And that's another one dead, and 1 down to 2 wounds left. And then finally the hand weapons, 3 attacks, so 1 attack each, no AP, but they still get rending. And that's only 1 hit, but it is a rend. And that's not a passed save. Now the one remaining member of the Retribution Squad will get to fight back. He'll get 2 attacks with his shock hammer, hitting on 3s. Both hit. He's at AP 2. So these will be 5-up saves on the Giant Bull Riders. And both fail, so one of the Giant Bull Riders is down to 1 wound left. They get tough 3. And at the end of that combat, the Giant Bull Riders definitely won that combat, so the Retribution Squad will have to take a morale check. This will be a 3-up, and if it fails, it will be routed. And that's a 1, so that's an automatic fail. So the Retribution Squad is taken out by a magnificent charge from the Giant Bull Riders. And like I say, this Brute Ultra Boss is no mindless brute. He is a tactical genius for an Orc anyway. So he's yelled at the Giant Bull Riders to fall back and regroup, ready for another charge. So with their consolidation move, the Giant Bull Riders have moved back behind the objective and should be out of range of a charge from the Prosecution Squad. Probably not the Celestial Lord though, because the Great Drake gives him fast. And sure enough, that will be the next unit to activate, because he is slightly closer to that objective than the Prosecution Squad is. And the Celestial Lord on his Great Drake charges into the Giant Bull Riders. He gets impact 3, so straight away 3 saves on the Giant Bull Riders of 3-up. And 2 of those pass, 1 fails, so the 1 remaining wound on that Giant Bull Rider is taken away. The Great Drake gets Fire Breath, so that's 3 automatic attacks, or 3 automatic hits rather, in melee at AP 1. So these will be 4-up saves on the Giant Bull Riders. And all of those fail, so that's another dead Giant Bull Rider. Take that one. And then Celestial Lord has Furious, so we'll give him the extra attack on his Tempest Hammer. So this will be 5 attacks instead of 4. Hitting on 3s. They all hit. There's no rending, but they are AP 2. So 5-up saves on the last remaining Giant Bull Rider. And only 1 of those passes, so that is the last Giant Bull Rider slain. And the Celestial Lord consolidates towards the Brute Ultra Boss, and then the Prosecution Squad soars in behind him to make sure that objective is taken. And that is the end of the first turn. At the end of turn 1, it looks like this. The Black Orcs and their Chanter are holding the objective on the extreme left flank, whilst opposite them the Evocation Squad are holding the objective by the Orc Totem. In the centre, nobody holds the objective, but the Liberation Squad are well on their way, and on the right flank there have been brutal charges and counter charges, leaving the Eternal Wardens in control of that objective by the Grave Barrow, and the Ultra Boss feeling somewhat exposed now that his cavalry have been taken out. So a bit outnumbered, but all Orcs like a good fight. So moving into turn 2, it will be the Orcs activating first, because they finished activating first in turn 1. Right, at the start of turn 2, I need to decide what I'm going to do in my first activation. I'm not worried about the Black Orcs over here. I'm pretty confident that they can take out that Evocation Squad, and yeah, I'm not worried about them in the slightest. So I'm reasonably confident they can continue to secure that objective, take them out and get that objective. Over here is a completely different matter. So we've lost the Giant Bull Riders. That is quite a significant blow. They were one of my toughest units, if not the best unit I've got, I think. The Shaman is not very good in combat. He's good at buffing and debuffing and that sort of thing. In an ideal world, I would have liked to have cast the magical fists on the brute boss and his brute orcs so that they get rending, because at the minute they haven't got very good weapons. They do a lot of attacks but not a lot of rending except for the brute boss himself. And there's at least 3 units there that are going to be concentrating on these guys, and the chances are that either the Liberation Squad or the Celestial Lord will activate first and hit me first, so I can't really spend an activation on this guy buffing these and risking a charge from either the Liberation Squad or the Celestial Lord, especially the Celestial Lord. So I think I'm just going to go straight in with the Ultra Boss charging the Celestial Lord with his brute orcs. Right, the brute Ultra Boss is charged in with his brute orcs. Everybody is in fighting range. We'll start things off with the brute Ultra Boss himself. He's got Furious, so we'll put the extra attack on his great weapon, giving him 4 attacks with his great weapon instead of 3. And these will hit on 3s. And that is 3 hits. And these are AP2, so this will be 4 up saves on that Celestial Lord. And he fails 1. So 1 down, 5 to go. Celestial Lord has got tough 6, so 3 base plus an extra 3 for being on a Great Drake. Brute Ultra Boss gets an extra 3 attacks with his Scrap Fist, hitting on 3s. They all hit, and these are AP1, so 3 up saves for the Celestial Lord. And he saves them all. So still 5 wounds to get through. Right, on to the Brute Orcs. They have got 2 hand weapons each, and each hand weapon has 3 attacks. So that's 6 attacks each for each of the Brute Orcs. They've also got Furious, so that effectively gives them 7 attacks each. And I don't think I've got 35 dice. As it happens, I do have 35 dice. So this is going to be 35 attacks hitting on 3s. Hopefully quantity over quality, because these don't get any kind of AP. Reroll those 2 because they're standing proud. Right. So that's that many get through. And now for the saves, no AP, so I want to see at least 5 1s in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 1s. We take down the Celestial Lord. And the brute Ultra Boss clambers over the tattered corpse of his foe, managing to put himself closer to the Liberation Squad than the Shaman is, because I don't particularly want the Liberators charging the Shaman. Right, so successful first activation for the Orcs. Let's see which unit is going to activate first for the Eternal Wardens. That's going to be the Prosecution Squad right in front of the Brute Ultra Boss, and they will charge in. Okay, so thought process behind this move is that objective is technically currently captured by the Eternal Wardens, even though the Brute Orcs are now on it as well. They won't count as contesting it or having captured it until the end of the turn. So what I've done is I've moved the Prosecution Squad so that one of them is still within 3 inches of it, but they have still charged as far as they can towards the uncontrolled objective in the centre, which is the top left of the screen, but still able to fight the Brute Ultra Boss and his squad of Brute Orcs. So the Prosecution Squad have got 1 hand weapon each, so that's 3 attacks, and they'll hit on 3s. That's 2 hits. there's no AP on this. So 4 up saves. And that's 1 success, 1 fail. And now the Brute Ultra Boss and his squad get to fight back, but because they've already fought this turn, they'll be hitting on 6s. We'll start with the Brute Ultra Boss himself. He gets 3 attacks because he did not charge in this combat, so normal 3 attacks, hitting on 6s. Nothing. His Scrap Fist, 3 attacks. It's 1 hit. And this is AP 1. Prosecution squads have 4 up armor, so this will be a 5 up save because it's AP 1, and they pass that. And then 30 attacks. I should really have piled in, shouldn't I? I get to pile in 2 inches. I should have done that to make sure everybody can hit them. There we go. Slightly out of sequence, but hey ho, them's the rules, so let's get them right. So yeah, 30 attacks from the Brute Orcs. Hitting on 6s. So 5 attacks get through. 4 up saves. Oh, they all fail. Now, Prosecution squad are tough 3 each, so 1 will die and 1 will be down to 1 wound left. So we'll take this guy away, I think, because again, technically they still need to be within 3 inches of that one to be contesting it at the end of the turn, and if I was controlling them, that's what I would do. So 1 is down to 1 wound left, and we'll put that on the guy in the middle. Now, they lost the attack, so they now need to take a morale test. They have lost more than half of the wounds in that squad, because there was a total of 9 wounds there, tough 3 each, 3 of them, and they've lost 5 wounds, so that puts them at less than half health. So a 1 or a 2 and they will rout. That's a 1. So they rout. A bit of a comeback for the Orcs. Not looking so bleak after all over here. The Brute Ultra Boss and his brutes really being brutal. And again, the Brute Ultra Boss and the Brute Orcs won that combat, so they can consolidate another 3 inches. So they've closed further onto the Liberation Squad. And the next unit to activate... Oh no, it's my activation, isn't it? Yeah. So I'm going to activate the Black Orcs over on the other flank. So over on the left flank, the Black Orcs being urged on by the Chanter are going to charge into that Evocation Squad. And I fear that the Evocation Squad are not long for this world. Well, I say fear, you know, they're the bad guys from my perspective. So I'm hoping that the Evocation Squad is not long for this world. And they've charged in. Right, I'm going to have to do these attacks in several stages because there's a couple of different weapons options in there, and also there's a Sergeant. So starting things off with the Black Orc Sergeant, who is that one there. He gets 2 attacks with his hand weapons. Now, ordinarily he would hit on 3s, but because he's a Sergeant, he gets +1 to hit, so he'll hit on 2s. There is a Chanter in there who would ordinarily give him and the unit an extra +1, but that would put him on hitting on 1s, and 1s always fail. So 2s or more, 2 attacks. So there's 1 hit, 1 fail. There's no rending, but there is AP 1. So the Evocation Squad have ordinarily got a 4 up armor save, so this will put them on 5 up. And that's a fail. So one member of that Evocation Squad takes 1 wound. Also in the Black Orc Squad we have got 2 models with great weapons. They get 1 attack each. They are both in range. The only ones that aren't in range to attack within the 2 inches are these 2 at the back, so the actual Chanter himself and the drummer. So the 2 Black Orcs with the great weapons, ordinarily hitting on 3s, but because of the Chanter, hitting on 2s. And they both hit. These are AP 3, so the Evocation Squad will need 6 up saves for this. play them both, so that's one dead evocator. 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 I think it's supposed to be evocator. I think in the skirmish game that I played, I kept saying evocator, but as it's an evocation squad, I would say it's an evocator. So yeah, one dead. We'll move that guy. Makes sense because A, he's closer to the ones with the great weapons, and also we want, if I was playing as them, I would keep the one closest to the objective. And I've removed that model, even though all of these attacks come in simultaneously. I've just removed it so that it's easier to keep track of how much damage we've done. But yeah, even though these ones at the back technically don't have an enemy model in range anymore, like I say, all of the attacks happen at the same time. So at the time of the attacks were made, they did have a model in range. So there are 6 with enemies in range, 6 black orcs with enemies in range. They get 2 attacks each, ordinarily hitting on 3s, but because of the chanter, hitting on 2s. There's only one miss. I think it was that one. And these are all AP1, so these will be 5-up saves. Ooh, so 2 of them save. That's one dead evocator, and that's another dead evocator, so they do indeed wipe out the evocation squad. So for all I was feeling a little bit disheartened at the start of the turn, things have certainly taken a swing now that the Orcs have managed to take out 3 units in effectively 2 of their activations. And the Orcs consolidate onto that objective in front of the totem. The only unit left to activate for the Eternal Wardens is this Liberation Squad, and they will be charging the Brute Ultra Boss and his Brute Orcs, even though technically it's the wrong direction. The Liberation Squad is charged in. They get 2 attacks each with their hammers. There's 6 of them, so that's 12 attacks, hitting on 3s. That's 4 misses. That's statistically average. These are AP1, so this will be 5-up saves for the Brute Orcs. It's a 3 save. Those 2 will take care of the 1-on-1 wound. Those 3 will kill another one. And now the Brute Orcs will get a chance to fight back again, but again, hitting on 6s because they've already fought this turn. In fact, they fought quite a lot this turn. So, starting with the Brute Boss himself, 3 attacks with his great weapon, hitting on 6s. That's 1 hit. AP2, so this will be a 5-up save, and that saves. 3 attacks with his Rip Fist, hitting on 6s. There's 1. This will be a 4-up save, AP1, and that saves. He's not done a lot this game. I've not been that impressed with it. There are 3 Brute Orcs left, 6 attacks each. That's 18 attacks, hitting on 6s. And that is 3 hits. No AP on these. 3-up saves. And 2 get through. So 1 member of that Liberation Squad is down to 1 wound left. So in total, the Liberation Squad inflicted 5 wounds, and in return the Brute Orcs inflicted 2 wounds. So this will be a morale check for the Brute Orcs. They've got a quality of 3 up, and they pass. So now the Liberation Squad will fall back an inch, and the only unit on the battlefield that is yet to activate is the Orc Shaman. The Shaman has rushed onto that objective in the centre of the battlefield, and he is now going to try and cast Headbutt on that Liberation Squad. So Headbutt will go off on a 5-up. He gets +2 to this for being Wizard 2. And that's a pass. Headbutt does 1 hit on an enemy unit within 12 inches. So that'll be the Liberation Squad, since it's the only enemy unit on the table, and it is within 12 inches. And it's AP 4, Deadly 3. So they need a 6-up save, otherwise one of them is flat out dead. Nope, so one of them is dead. And one of them had already taken wounds from the attacks by the Brute Orcs in the fight back. So yeah, in hindsight I probably should have gone for Godly Foot, but I think that would have missed because that's a 6-up, so I would have needed 4 or more. But anyway, hindsight is a wonderful thing, but it's not as good as foresight. Right, that is the end of the turn. At the end of turn 2, the Orcs have secured their left flank. They continue to count as having captured that objective on the extreme left. They've vanquished the Evocation Squad in front of the totem and secured that objective. In the centre, the Shaman is holding that objective, and the Brute Orcs with the Brute Ultra Boss are within 3 inches of the objective in front of that Barrow Grave. And with only the Liberation Squad left, what a reversal of fortunes. At the beginning of turn 2, I was somewhat worried about my Orcs. Needlessly, it seems. I should have trusted in that Brute Ultra Boss and his tactical genius. So moving into turn 3, it will be the Liberation Squad to activate first, because they finished activating first in the previous turn. The Liberation Squad have charged in around behind the Brute Orcs and will attack. They get 2 attacks each. There's 5 of them left, so that's 10 attacks with their hammers, hitting on 3s. So 6 get through. AP 1, so 5-up saves. Not a 1, so that's 1, 2 dead Brute Orcs. Fighting back, the Brute Ultra Boss gets 3 attacks with his great weapon. This time hitting on 3s because it's the first fight of the turn. They all hit. AP 2, 5-up saves. Makes 1 fail 3, so 1 has taken 2 wounds. 3 attacks with his Scrap Fist, hitting on 3s. They all hit. AP 1, saving on 4s. 2 get through. So 1 Liberator is dead and another one is down to 2 wounds. And finally 6 attacks from the 1 remaining Brute Orc, hitting on 3s. They all hit. No AP, so 3-up saves. 3 get through. So that will be another dead Liberator. And 1 on 2 wounds left. The Liberation Squad inflicted 6 wounds on the Orcs. The Orcs in return inflicted 7 wounds, so the Orcs won that combat. So now the Liberation Squad has to take a morale check. On a 3-up they will stand firm, but if they fail it they will be routed because they're now less than half their starting strength. So they pass. And with the one and only AI unit having activated, I'm now free to act with impunity. I think we'll start with the Shaman. He is Shaman, potato, potato. He is going to cast Magic Fists on the Brute Orcs. And that's fail. So now the Brute Ultra Boss and the 1 remaining Brute Orc are going to charge those Liberation Squads. Liberation Squads, that's really poor grammar. That Liberation Squad. Start things off with the Brute Ultra Boss. He's got Furious, we'll put that on his great weapon again, so he gets 4 attacks, but hitting on unmodified 6s this time. And there's a hit. -2, so this will be a 5-up save, which fails. Takes 1 wound off the injured member of the Liberation Squad. And then 7 attacks, because again, Furious, from the 1 remaining Brute Orc, hitting on 3s, no 6s, unmodified 6s. And there's 1. 4-up save. Saves it. Sorry, 3-up save, but it was still a save. 6 attacks coming back from the Liberation Squad, hitting on unmodified 6s again. Nothing. So again, the Brute Orcs won that combat, so Liberation Squad need to take a morale check, and that's another pass. And hearing the sounds of a fight still going on, the Black Orcs have rushed past the objective near the totem, heading towards the sounds of the ongoing combat. Going into turn 4, the Liberation Squad will activate first, and they will be charging the Brute Ultra Boss. So the Liberation Squad doggedly hanging on to that one objective, whereas the Orcs are in control of the other 3. And the Liberation Squad have charged the Brute Ultra Boss and the one remaining Brute Orc. They will get 6 attacks, 2 attacks each, hitting on 3s because it's a fresh combat. It's 4 hits. AP 1, so this will be 5 up saves. And we saved 2, so that last remaining Brute Orc is down to 1 wound left. And fighting back, Brute Ultra Boss, 3 attacks with his great weapon, hitting on 3s. They all hit. AP 2, so this will be 5 up saves. They all fail, so that will kill off that Liberator and put 1 down to 1 wound left. 3 attacks with the Brute Ultra Boss's Scrap Fist, hitting on 3s. 2 hits, 4 up saves, fails, so that will kill that wounded Liberator. And then finally 6 attacks from the Brute Orc. They'll hit on 3s, saving on 3s or more. 2 save, so that the last remaining member of the Liberation Squad is on 1 wound left. 2 wounds inflicted by the Liberation Squad, 5 inflicted by the Orcs. Yet another morale check. Can he hang in there on a 1 or on a 3 up? Yes, he can. He stands firm. The Shaman has rushed forwards, and he's going to cast Headbutt on that one remaining member of the Liberation Squad. This will go off on a 5, but he gets +2 to it for Wizard 2, so 3 up, and that's a pass. So this is 1 hit, AP 4, Deadly 3, so he needs a 6, otherwise he is slain, and that's a fail. That last remaining member of the Liberation Squad is wiped out with a magical headbutt from a shaman. And with that, savage bestial roars of victory cry out over the landscape as the Orcs have once again vanquished the incursions by the Eternal Wardens. Now, I won't deny, I was very nervous at the start of turn 2, having lost my tough unit of cavalry. I did honestly think it wasn't going to go my way. I always knew the left flank would be safe with the Black Orcs against that Evocation Squad, but this flank with the Brute Ultra Boss and his Brute Orcs, after those giant Boar Riders got taken out, I thought, yeah, we would collapse here and we'd get overwhelmed. But, like I say, I think I underestimated the tactical genius of that Brute Ultra Boss. So in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much for watching. Please continue to like, comment and subscribe. And until next time, God bless.